The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting group. Access Fort Wayne is a department of the Allen County Public Library. If you or anyone you know might be interested in making a television show, please call 260-421-1250.
Hi, welcome to the Kachmann Mind, Body, Spirit Show. I think you're going to find this show very interesting because you hear about them all the time, the new Ozempic, Mounjaro type medications that people are using to inject themselves once a week, and they're losing a tremendous amount of weight. I'm not going to tell, they're good parts and they're serious complications too. So I'm just going to throw information out to you. I don't want you to stop or start these medications based on what I'm saying. That is up to your provider, yourself, information you're gathering. I've done a previous show on them. You can watch me interview somebody who's been on the drug and just throwing out more information out to you today. There are many books on there, but there's some better than others. I brought one with me today, written by Johann Hari, Hari, and here's the book. I encourage you to read this book, cover to cover. And I took excerpts out of that and many other books and YouTube shows to send some information out to you today. So let's get on the road together. They can be of tremendous benefit to some people. And I know some people that are on it, and I've spoken to them, and they're feeling better. They've lost a significant amount of weight, but there's also a negative side to them, and we'll look at both sides. I mean, let's face it. I mean, they're a dream. The GLP-1 agonists, they're called, because you can lose a lot of weight, but that's not the only thing. But you can get, at the moment you're using them, you can get rid of diabetes, alcohol addiction, cigarette addiction, narcotic addiction, gambling addiction, all sorts of addictions. So, wow. But that's not necessarily permanently. But what else can do all that at once? You know what I mean? So that's good parts. So we're going to discuss the physiology, how the drugs work. And the biggest reason many people were taking these, the science of it really was to take Ozempic to help get rid of your diabetes. That's a big thing. Really, almost 200 diseases are associated with type 2 diabetes, and if you can prevent those, reverse those, wow. I mean, that's a miracle, and you can see the point. Is this a magic pill, though? And I think what he's trying to say, there is another side to it. Now, let me tell you just a quick thing about diabetes here. You need your blood tested to see if you got type 2 or not, okay? Even thin people can have diabetes, 30-40% of the people who are of normal weight, yes, can be diabetic. Mm-hmm. And you can be overweight and not be diabetic, although I would say 70% of people who are overweight have type 2 diabetes. But you need the blood testing. The blood testing is what's critical, and I will tell you about what that needs to be in a little bit. So the this has been well studied by Dr. Unwin and Dr. Taylor from England. You can pull up their YouTube shows, David Taylor and David Unwin, U-N-W-I-N, tremendous YouTube shows, and his wife Jen is a psychologist, and she's working in the field too because we eat sugar to feel better. Sugar is the main booger in the hooker, but she works with David, so it's a wonderful YouTube thing to look at. And Dr. Taylor, they've done the research in England. England saves their data for 35 years or so from birth to death. We don't do that in the United States. So they have tremendous amount of information. So in Britain, about 26% of the people are overweight. In the U.S., it's greater than 45%. But remember I said, just because you're overweight doesn't mean you got diabetes. You can be thin, a trophy, thin on the outside. But what these English doctors determine is that what really the bottom line is whether you have fat in the pancreas or fat in your liver. That's the bottom line. It's not just you're looking at you externally. And people who take these drugs, some are not, don't even need to take them. And if you buy them online, they may not be what you think they are, and they can be risked. Michelle Obama, President Obama, who I liked a lot, tried to get some traction in this field of weight and diabetes, because I was in Washington, D.C., and I saw the rate of type 2 diabetes extremely high, but she didn't get very far with it. But she tried, she tried. So it's about proper testing. What are some good tests to run? ALT, that is an enzyme that tells you if there's fat in the liver. What I said about diabetes, it's a fat in the pancreas and the liver that are the bottom line. You can be thin, you can be overweight, you don't have any fat in the liver, the pancreas, you probably don't have diabetes. So HbA1c, that's a blood sugar, okay? Get a GFR, that tells you the state of your kidneys, glomerular filtration rate, and the triglyceride HDL ratio is a good one, and a serum insulin. Serum insulin will tell you whether you, that is elevated 10 to 15 years before the blood sugar was ever elevated. Get a serum insulin. Get a serum insulin. It should be started even with young children. So these tests are the critical tests. You can get VLDL and a small LDL, the one that makes holes in the innermost layer of your blood vessels. Yeah, get that too. So food is designed to be addictive so that we buy more. It's processed food. They have figured out the bliss point. So you will eat certain types of food, but the majority of those are not healthy. They're full of sugar, salt, and starch. So food poisons us. We're eating too much fast food, these fast food restaurants. And we're eating that, and you can just look around. You see the nation getting bigger, but remember what I said, that everyone overweight has got diabetes. But now we are injecting the GLP-1 once a week, because it needs to be once a week, so that there's plenty of it in you. Otherwise, GLP-1 enzymes are destroyed quickly. Yeah, now let's make a new definition of overweight then, because everybody overweight is not necessarily diabetic. Abnormal or excessive fat accumulating in the liver or pancreas in your body. Let me say it once more. Abnormal or excessive fat accumulating in the liver or pancreas, which interferes with insulin secretion, which reduces your blood sugar. That presents a risk to health. That should be the new definition of being overweight, not just visual, okay? But, so how do these drugs work? Let's get to the bottom line here. There's a good 80% reduction in hunger if you take this injection. You may develop slight nausea as a complication. So Ozempic, the drug we're talking about for diabetes, or now the many drugs being sold, and they're probably doing research in over 700 or so. The science will change very quickly, but if we you have to increase the dose so it doesn't just affect diabetes, so it affects our hunger. For example, it's a higher dose, and the science became interested because they determined that in gastric bypass surgery, where now we're ending up with a small stomach, that your diabetes can be gone within a week. That doesn't mean it might not come back, but they learned a lot about the science of this. So manipulating a hormone, GLP glucagon-like protein, GLP-1, and this hormone, they thought it was only existed in your gut. They now have determined it also exists in your brain. So we make GLP-1 in your brain and in your gut. And they did experiments. They injected them in rats, and they found their appetite went away. But this hormone in us lasts gone very quickly. And then they found the Gila monster, their GLP-1 lasts longer, and then they analyzed it, and now they can make an imitation of it, GLP-1 agonist, remember, a duplicate, and now they become commercially available. So in 2005, they were approved for diabetes, and they did notice quite a bit of weight loss, and that made it more interesting, especially if you know Novo Nordisk, a pharmaceutical company from Europe, in 2022, and they noticed also there was a 15% weight loss. That was the game changer. That was the game changer. Now we realize it can be used for immediate, quick weight loss, 10-15%. Within a few weeks. That was a game changer. So, we stopped eating because it affected the appetite center in the brain. It affected the dopamine and the serotonin level. The quick change, that's the dopamine. The serotonin is the long term, and it not just shut down your gut. Your gut stopped contracting so much. It affected also the valve in the stomach, so you weren't hungry. They thought it was all related just to the gut because the gut didn't contract as much, and the food just sat in there, and you always felt full. But then they found out later that also it affected your hypothalamic system in your brain. So it's brain and gut. So, but they also found that over a period of time, after about 5 months or so of being on it, that it didn't work as good. You develop tolerance to it, and you regain quite a bit of weight. So we need to know the physiology. So it's not just, this drug isn't just a holiday fling that we take because we ate too much during the holiday. There are complications. So really, the way it's looking now, it's a lifelong marriage. But that may change because remember I said they're researching this, tremendous amount of research going on. Eli Lilly then came up with the drug Mounjaro, which stimulated the GLP-1. Remember, it's an agonist, so it imitates it. And they also are working on a gut hormone, GIP, G-I-P, but that loses 21% of the weight quickly. It's in clinical trials, so it's not really approved yet. And then they also have another drug, triple G, and glucagon causes 24% weight loss. It still has not been improved. So now more than 70 obesity drugs are in development. Yeah, it's going to be a quick change. And you say, well, it's a miracle. We got a way of losing weight, getting rid of addictions and alcohol and gambling and diabetes. So what a wonderful world. But the trouble is they have effects. And we have to understand them, and maybe they're so severe that these drugs one day will all be disapproved. I don't know. I have no idea. I doubt it. If you're weighing 300 or 400 pounds and using these drugs, maybe you need to, because the complications of that weight are much higher than the potential complications of the drug. So let's be open-minded here. Let's look at both sides. So a lot of drugs are in development. They're anticipating, though, that even it's affecting the stock market. Yes. A financial analyst is looking at the Krispy Kreme stock, and it's going down because people aren't buying as many donuts to feel good. Remember, we do these things because the donuts will light up our dopamine. I'm in heaven. And the long-term feel-good serotonin can be affected too. Companies that are selling hip and knee replacements, their stocks are going down too, because people aren't as big, don't need as many joint surgeries, I would say. But let's talk about the side effects a little bit. They worry you. I mean, there's nausea and vomiting. Remember, your gut it's not contracting, it's just stopping there. So some people get constipation and nausea, vomiting. There have been reports of increased rates of thyroid cancer, for example, but in Sweden they didn't think that was really true, although we're not sure. But they're seeing in the animals there's increased, but animals aren't humans, okay? But you have to be open-minded. Could that be a complication? If you have previous thyroid disease, probably best not to take the medication, okay? And people are noticing too that they may be a little bit depressed or not as relaxed as they would like to feel. It causes increased constipation. And so they slow down the gut and the emptying, and that can be a problem. The small valve at the end of the stomach isn't working as good. So instead of the gas passing through your bowel and going out the other end, it's coming up here, and you're burping a lot. That's a side effect that's been noticed. So the valve that sits at the bottom of the stomach doesn't open as quickly. So the air must go somewhere, so you're burping it up. So, and some people get such extreme satiety that they stop eating altogether. And some people, the gut paralyzes and never recovers. Permanently paralyzed gut. That's not common. Those side effects are not coming. So if the complications of your addiction or your diabetes are worse than the side effects of medication, you may decide that's the way it is for me, okay? So, but why do we gain weight in the first place? Eating processed food. Industries figured out how to what is a more likely thing that you'll grab the food again. So they process it. They put in chemicals and salt and sugar so that you'll buy some more. Industry has done that. And to find out what processed foods are, which most of them have more salt, more sugar on them. So the pull is so strong that although I weigh 132 pounds, okay? That if you were to put a donut there and the proper sprays on it, a pretty good chance I would grab it. So the attraction, the brain is very strong, okay? So, but overweight rates increased in the 1970s. And remember what I said about the tofu. It's thin on the outside, fat on the inside. If you want to know if you have diabetes, for example, which can lead to 200 diseases, get the blood test I spoke about. And the average American was 23 pounds overweight in 1960, and right now maybe 70%. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't have diabetes, that of them will say, but if you did a serum insulin, remember the serum insulin, I said, is elevated 10 to 15 years because of stuff sugar in the cell. Serum insulin level, because it's doing more work, is increasing slowly for many years. Get a serum insulin test. Don't tell me, even if you're a tofu or you're overweight and I'm not diabetic, I will not know it till you get the serum insulin test, okay? In 1980, 66% were overweight. 2018, 27%. The World Health Organization global obesity tripled since 1975, the World Health Organization said. So, and they tested too, it's not a genetic shift, it's a change in willpower, and which is related to the type of food put in front of you. Is it things that you want to eat to feel good? We all of us stress in our lives. When I saw many patients when I practiced neurosurgery, one of the first things I always said, unless it was obvious what you had, like a brain tumor or a broken bone or something, I would always say, what's going on in your life? These neurotransmitters have tremendous effect on your symptoms. Don't forget that, okay? So there's been no genetic shift, but there's been a change in willpower, processed food. And fresh food, fresh vegetables, they don't last very long. So they start canning them, but they added things to them which addict you to the product that you're buying. So a lot of these processed foods in cans are full of sugar and full of salt. So fresh food rots quickly. Remember that, but that's the best thing to eat. And so manufactured and processed food companies know that, and they took the nutrients out of food, because without the nutrients, it stays alive longer. Bad food lasts longer. So there's a strong connection between processed food and these new drugs. A strong connection. Dunkin' Donuts, okay, sells enough donuts daily to circle the earth times 2. Remember, I could barely resist it. Actually, I had a birthday recently, okay, 88 years old, yeah, no pills, normal blood test, 132 pounds, okay? So I don't know what somebody thought. Actually, when I give lectures out of town, they gave me a thing of donuts, and my wife put it by the coffee machine, because I drink coffee, that's fine to drink, in the morning, and they had a cellophane covering so you could see them. I wasn't going to eat them, and I didn't. I thought it was a joke. You should have thrown them away, but there were some stressful things happening that night, and about midnight or so, I grabbed 2 of them and I ate them. That goes to show you the attraction of vision and smell, okay? So watch out for that, I thought I'd tell you that. And Ronald McDonald is the second most recognized figure in the world. Only Santa Claus beats him. Yeah. So 7 ways that processed food could undermine our satiety, our feeling of fullness. you chew it less. Yeah, processed food, if you eat slowly and chew it, hormones get secreted and turn off the appetite center in the brain. Processed food can be added salt, sugar, carbs. So what we're eating really is baby food. Even mother's milk, you wouldn't believe it, even mother's milk when feeding the baby, you notice when the baby is being breastfed, it falls asleep. There's some morphones in mother's milk. Yes. Yes, although it's very healthy, it's a good fat, omega-3 fats. Okay? So, but as we eat bad food, the insulin level goes up and pushes the sugar level below normal, and we want to eat again. We want to eat again, so you want more. So our foods we're eating have no protein or fiber, and then protein, incidentally, decreases your appetite. So it's like I do. I eat 2 meals a day. I do fasting. No reason. I just feel it's fine because your brain secretes about 5 hormones in the morning that you don't need to eat breakfast. Breakfast is a recent invention, but it's an easy way to be of a normal weight, incidentally, without having to take these drugs, which can cause complications. 132 pounds, I remember, is that I eat some protein like eggs, guacamole, a good fat, for breakfast. So it's my breakfast, lunch, and I eat dinner. So 16-8 is what I practice, a quick way to get healthy, okay? And drugs, the Ozempic, for example, are an artificial solution to an artificial problem, processed food. We didn't have processed food, we wouldn't need to take these medications. Remember, I'm teaching you the good and the bad. So in Japan, they did, and which was recent, it wasn't 30, 40 years ago. They needed more people in industry, and they noticed that people were unhealthy. You know what they did? And that's in the last chapter of this wonderful book. I want you to read, The Magic Pill. The last chapter is devoted to that. What they did is they taught the children to eat good food, and they had the rule of 5. You have to have 5 different foods, and foods of color, small portions, and then they had the triangle system where you ate a little bit of one and then there another, and they found a way it seems to reduce kids' appetite, and the kids are very healthy. But they did one additional thing, which is very smart, is what we need to do, because we're facing this huge epidemic. 90% of the people in the area are diabetic. Believe me, properly tested, 90%. Then they had the parents came in. They taught the parents. Yeah, isn't that interesting? But then over the years, they noticed that in spite of all that, the processed food companies managed to enter the country. And there was an increase in people being overweight, not like America, but they were concerned. And you know what they did then? They went to the factories, and by Japanese law throughout the country, everybody had to be weighed in the waist measurement. And it was working right. The company was responsible to start a system of people improving their health. One company, for example, not every company is the same, developed a robot. And they would have the workers stand in front of the robot, and the robot would take a picture and ask some questions, and they would have to show them pictures of the meals they were eating. But every very interesting reading in this book here is that every company could develop a different system, but you can't believe their obesity rate. We're looking in this country, overweight, 70%, obese, maybe 50%. Theirs is less than 1%. Less than 1%, so they don't have these 200 chronic diseases in the country that are caused by diabetes, for example, their addiction rates are much lower also because people are of normal weight. They don't need the drugs and the alcohol and the cigarettes to feel good. They feel good already. People use those drugs to feel better because they do have some stresses. So, I mean, there's still some problem, but the rate is much lower. So GLP-1, remember we said it's a gut hormone, but also a brain hormone. And so the processed food in this country is really destroying us. We have a toxic food system. And I'll be honest with you, I'm quite concerned that I've looked at we're feeding our children in the schools, and if you look at the juices we're getting them, everybody, they approve milk, but there's so many hormones and chemicals in milk. They recommended every breakfast a lot of sugary foods, cinnamon buns for breakfast. Yeah, I looked at it. You can get it online. That we are creating sugar addicts. Yeah, no doubt about it. And I've took this information and I'm taking it to the city, to the county, to the boards to see if they might step up. They may not know. They may not know. Their nutritionists are either there or not there or teaching the wrong thing. But maybe I'm not giving up on it, so I'll deal with them. So it's hard to fix the individual, but a society could change. Hard to fix a person, but you can, and you have to educate them and show them some love, maybe set a goal, and try to change them. But it'd be a lot easier if we could change the whole society, which should probably start in the schools, or do it at least as they do in Japan, have each worker be educated. The motivation in Japan actually was so that the workers wouldn't die and would be healthy because they need more of them. They don't have enough of them. Their birth rates have gone down significantly. Ours are going down too. And so we need to try a new way of getting people healthy. We can't turn them to sugar addicts, and because people get these diseases, die many years younger, 20 years younger. In the last 15 years, they're disabled. They're amputating their legs. They're becoming blind. All that is avoidable. And Robert Lustig says, now remember, you talk about the GLP-1 inhibitor drugs. Robert Lustig, who's very famous, pediatric endocrinologist, all over YouTube, written many books, it says drugs are a Band-Aid. Okay. But he also admits if you can get rid of your addictions to alcohol and drugs and sugar, at least for a period of time, it has some benefit. And there have been essentially no long-term studies beyond 2 years that we still don't know what they can do. And remember, down the line, 700 drugs are being studied. You won't need the injections, I'm sure. It'll be a pill you take once a week, every 2 weeks, once a month maybe. So good times may be coming. But at the moment, if you don't have good health habits along with taking the medication, then probably you are in danger. So, but it's hard to argue. I mean, we're waiting for the magic solution, so I think at the moment, who should be taking these drugs? No one knows for certain, but they're thinking if your body mass index is less than 27, you shouldn't be taking them because of unknown side effects. If your pregnant or or the possibility of being pregnant, probably shouldn't take them either, because these medications will affect the genetic script of your baby. Yes, only 10% of your genetic script of the baby is written at conception. What the mother of whether people are smoking or drinking or what food they're consuming is affecting the baby. So the mother's taking a GLP-1 inhibitor to lose a few pounds is affecting the baby. The baby may come out because you've rewritten the genetic script. It may be too small or maybe too big. It may be addicted, be addicted to things when it's a teenager. It's a world we don't know about. And certainly a pregnant person, a person who could become pregnant, shouldn't be taking it. But if your body mass index is sky high, the complications of diseases you're going to get, dementia, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, increased rates of cancer, that risk may be higher than the potential side effects of the drug, although they're not all known. Okay? So taking Ozempic was people didn't want people to take it for a time because they thought losing weight wasn't the right thing, because you should be punished for having eaten the wrong food. Well, that's sort of past. So, but people who taking the drug and they're overweight, then in inflamed state. So get to find out, see if your body's inflamed. HSCRP test would be good. So the risk of Ozempic, does it outweigh the risk of obesity, addiction, alcohol, and things? We don't know for certain, but some people, because their mood changes so much, are committing suicide. They're not feeling very well every day. So it's both ways. So let's look down the road. Health effects of obesity, diabetes, 70-80% people have complications from being seriously overweight. But then again, remember what I said? Not all people are overweight are going to have diabetes. What counts is whether there's fat in the liver or the pancreas, and you can do some blood testing for that. Ultrasounds show fat in the pancreas the earliest, because of fat in the pancreas, you don't secrete insulin, you become diabetic. Interesting enough, they have found that the fat in the pancreas doesn't necessarily kill the insulin beta cells that make the insulin. So if you think of getting rid of your diabetes and get the fat out of the pancreas, out of the liver, although you may even be thin, the pancreas will wake up, work again. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Yeah. So most common health effects, let's look down the road of obesity, diabetes, 70-80%. But again, what are the side effects of diabetes? Blindness, Alzheimer's disease, cancer, amputations, dislocation, renal failure, heart failure, a lot of complications. So to consider taking the drug to get rid of these and change the way you eat, slowly reduce the medication, get off it. No one knows whether you can get off the medication. You may develop a ravenous appetite, and all your weight and everything comes back. But in spite of only 70%, 80% of the people with being overweight of diabetes, there is a linear relationship to weight. Your chance of getting diabetes in this 200 diseases is weight related. So, but keep the trophies in mind. You may be thin. Oh, I'm not diabetic. No, your blood test. Show me your blood test. Then I know if you're diabetic or not. Okay? So, and they did some testing. They laid about 15 people in a bed, and they fed them 6,000 calories a day. And within 48 hours, they had insulin resistance. So if you're eating the wrong food, you can become diabetic very, very quickly. So the overweight have a 200% increase in knee and hip replacements. Yeah. So that's why those stocks from the knee and hip company, when it was happening in Warsaw, their stocks are going down because with the Ozempic and Mounjaro, the people are losing weight quickly. There's less weight in the body. We lose about 40% of our muscle mass. Incidentally, 40% of the weight loss that occurs with these drugs is muscle loss. And it does not come back completely. Yeah, it does not come back completely. So people should be, if they're on the drug, should be working out and walking, lifting light weights. And I mentioned, remember I said bariatric surgery with alternative, insulin goes away, diabetes goes away quickly, 75% decrease in diabetes, 60% decrease in high blood pressure, two-thirds lose their back pain, chances of dying go down 92%. So these bypass surgeries have value. Death rate goes down 40%. But then there's complications from bariatric surgery too, and I'll review those. And but it has a downside. 1,000 have died so far, maybe more by now, have died from the operation. The stomach is much smaller. Some people develop psychiatric problems because they're not eating as much sugar. And the weight loss drugs have complications too. And so the drug company Novo Nordisk studied about 17,000 people on a drug study, and they felt if your BMI, body mass index, is less than 27, you shouldn't take the drug. So they did a study of placebo versus the drug, and they found the ones on the drug, incidentally, the heart rate decreased 20%. Mm-hmm. The less strokes, down about 20%. 28, and they measured 28 different measures. But remember, it was done by a drug company, so are they reporting accurately? We don't know. But a 20% weight loss, if you're way overweight, isn't that much. You could do that easily by eating right, and you would lose weight quickly by avoiding sugar and bad fats. You lose 20% of your weight in 6-8 weeks anyhow. Why take the chance of using a medication where you might have the risk go up? So what about the risks, other risks of the GLP-1 inhibitor drugs? You get that the what they call the Ozempic facial look. Also, your buttocks go away, and the facial look deflated, and you look saggy down there. Okay, and I personally, since I've looked enough, people can tell when the people on TV that are movie actors, they have that Ozempic look. But what's their outlook down the line? They're going to regain that? Are they going to get complications? They're going to get thyroid pancreatitis, for example. It's hard to say. France also keeps good database, just like England does, from birth to death, so they can look at things and found that people that eat fatty food, actually their rate of heart disease and lung disease doesn't. So they eat the good fats, so they stay healthy. In Canada, they found what are the odds of getting pancreatitis on the drug. They think it increases the risk about 9 times if you take the inhibitor. So. But remember, these risk calculations are based if one dies and then 2 die, let's say it's 100% increase in the risk. Well, so you got to know how many actually died. Remember, I spoke about the loss of muscle mass, and these drugs cost money, $1,500 a month or so. but the cost will go down soon because so many drugs are in development that they'll be 6 months to a year down the line. I say they will cost a lot less. So I think we need to pay more attention probably to the good parts and the bad parts. And on these medications, far they found that the weight gets back in about 5 years. All your weight is back. But you might think, I'm not going to live that long. So, and with diabetes, you're going to have complications. So it's difficult. The decision is difficult to make, and so we are sabotaged by an environment and evolutionary biology, and we have in our body too what are called set points. I think every day I weigh 132 pounds. I think I've had good health habits now. Remember, I eat 2 meals a day. And that I've been doing the same thing for 6 months, and every day I weigh the same. So I have a set point, and these drugs can do the same thing. You eat the same way, you're eating bad food, and you're on Ozempic, you're going to develop a set point, and it may be tough to deal with. The set point may be high, and you're going to gain all your weight back. And in Iceland, they tried because they're becoming unhealthy, and they developed 11 sports. They supported them. They were free. They were at the schools, and they found it made very little difference to the weight of their nation. Mm-hmm. So physical activity is good psychologically and everything, but to lose weight just by physical activity, it doesn't really work. Type of food is really what processed food availability in the schools, what they're feeding the kids in the schools makes more difference than physical activity. So, but then again, these medications are a brain breakthrough. Okay, they affect how we think about food. So it has been good news for addictions to alcohol and drugs and gambling, whatever addiction you might have. Your reward center has been changed, and be some benefit to you. The trouble is they don't work as good, and you have to increase the dose, and what are the long-term effects? We don't know for certain, okay? But they, after a few months on these medications, our mood changes too. Emotionally, we may be dulled, we may not be depressed, but we're not feeling as good. So it affects you biologically, psychologically, and remember, there's effect on the receptors in your brain. So all humans make GLP-1 hormones in their brains. A bombshell when they found that out. Okay, we process and make it in our brains. So for years we thought it was just effects were just in the gut, and many scientists realized GLP-1 agonists reduce desire for all drugs, and that was good news. I mean, if you're addicted to a lot of things and you overweight and you got diabetes, I would certainly consider the medication. But then you got to figure out eventually, can I get off of this? Do I have to take it all my life? But again, the drugs are going to get cheaper. They're going to be by mouth. Some already work by mouth. There's just not enough data there to make firm decisions. So now the patients have supercharged the reward system by turning it off, and you don't want to eat more, you don't want to smoke. So the benefits, but this is changing the mindset, and we still don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to run out and gamble more? Are we going to commit suicide? So there's psychiatric effects. And I wouldn't be surprised if down the line they pass a federal law and outlaw all these medications. I don't know. But they definitely have some benefits, okay? So we develop anhedonia, the inability to express pleasure. We need some pleasure, and it changes our mood. In Europe, they found 150 people have committed suicide from these medications, but a certain number committed suicide because of the diabetes. They're going to amputate their legs. So you have to compare the two. Eli Lilly is developing some of these drugs, and they've asked for their companies, at least in this book, it says they refuse to comment. What does that mean? I don't know. Ask them if they might say. So some think that the drugs block only what's excessive. So they may lower or increase the set point. Remember, I said potentially pregnant people should not be taking the drug because we're changing the genetic, we're writing the script of the baby, for example, or the potential time baby, because there may be a pregnancy we don't know for a few months that we are pregnant. Meanwhile, we're writing the genetic script of the baby. Remember I said babies don't have but 5% of the genetic script written at conception. You're writing it by what things you're doing, like the Mozart effect. And roughly 1 in 10 people after bariatric surgery, remember we talked about that, develop addiction to alcohol, gambling, or shopping. The diabetes went away, but remember the surgery was necessary because they're addicted to sugar. Now they transfer the addiction to something else. Isn't that interesting? So that's addiction transfers. We see that a lot. In this book, he says, we see this a lot with bariatric surgery. So surgery doesn't solve all the emotional problems, okay? So a lot of them need emotional counseling, and that may not even work. And after bariatric surgery, you get drunk quicker. Alcohol has a big effect. Suicide rates increase times 4. So could bariatric surgery be an example of drug use? I don't know, because it's changing our psychiatry. So the reason many find to eat healthy would be a better way. So food habits, they can be unlearned, okay? And you can get rid of a lot of addictions to food, or by eating different food, by eating good fats, okay? Be vegetarian. No, that alone is not the answer, because B12, for example, only comes from meat. Certain minerals are more likely to appear from meat. To drink milk regularly, for example, you need to research by Joe Key on Whitewash, a book about milk. There's so many hormones and pesticides. When a calf is born, they immediately inject it that day with the growth hormone to make it grow to produce more milk. But then you give the milk to the kid. You see, so we have to be careful what we are indeed ingesting. So food habits are learned. They can be unlearned, okay? So weight loss drugs are like a rocket fuel for the people with eating disorders, because they don't want to eat. They turn the appetite off, and they're getting them online and begging their doctor for them, and has resulted in starvation and many deaths. So people with eating disorders definitely should not be given the GLP-1 inhibitors. So on page 253 in this book, it leads you to a lot of websites that you can look at to gather more information. I am not the final word here. That book is not the final word, but you need to gather more information. Let me give you an example of page 253. In the U.S., remember I said to look, what are they feeding your child? I know of a neighbor child of mine. I took a walk every morning, and I think there was this house where they adopted 14 children. I think maybe they're living in a better place. Okay, some came from the Ukraine even, and I talked to their parents who were visiting, and there was one boy, and there are many different races and ethnic groups, and when I took a walk, I would take one of the boys with me and educate him, even gave him books, and he would cook one meal a day for the family to be healthy, to help all the kids. Yeah, that's me, and he did that, but the trouble is, he then went to the local high school, and they served him very unhealthy food. You can see the menu on their website. They gave him an addictive lunch. Yes, full of sugary products, full of juices. Milk, which remember I said has many toxins and hormones in it. And government supports the price of milk. They give it to the farmers. And this is all interrelated into the school system. So here's some websites. And Healthy Schools Campaign, yeah, it's a good one. Here's another one, School Food Matters. I don't want to read you all the websites to you. Food Research and Action Center, Food and Water Watch, Black Urban Growers. And look at these websites. In the UK, Food Foundation, I think I look at that one. Yeah, foodfoundation.org.uk, because they are ahead of us. Dr. Unwin, Dr. Taylor are indeed ahead of us. In Australia, Food for Health Alliance. So if you want to keep posted, make contact with them. And the excellent book, excellent reference book. Remember on the cover, he says, Magic Pill. Remember I talked about the GLP-1s. The extraordinary benefits and disturbing risks. Remember I spoke about both of the new weight loss drugs. So they have benefits and they have risks. I want you to learn, some people probably need to take them, but when to get off the drug. But the drug science will advance quickly. A tremendous number at the moment are under study. So in summary, we had good parts, we have bad parts. You got to know the indication. There's some people who definitely don't need to take them, but there's some people with high BMIs, say over 35 or so, who maybe need to try them, but they need to know the science of them. You just can't keep on taking them because it may end up with a disaster for you. But I appreciate you watching this show. This will go to YouTube in about 10 days, and it may go all over the world, actually, because India has called me to look at my YouTube shows because there's so much diabetes in the country that I'm a little concerned that they may start, the whole country may be taking this medication, and they need to keep up with the science. And that's the reason I'm doing these shows, because they're traveling at all over the place, not just the Fort Wayne area, the county area. And I hope down the line, I pray that I will be able to change the school system as to what they're feeding the children. Then we won't need any medication in the first place, and they can play pickleball with me when I'm 100. Thanks for listening to this show. I enjoyed giving it. We'll do more shows on this in the future. And if you know something I should know, send me a note, stop me, talk to me. I'm at the library almost every day. Thank you. Thank you for listening today. I did that because I love you. Bye-bye.